Our next speaker is Kathren. Ellen is going to be talking to us about the challenge of homelessness and how the changing face of homelessness. You know, it's not just what we often think or in the media portrays as single men being the ones who have a challenge with no bed for their head. So please welcome Kathren, the Executive Director of Elijah Family Homes.
Get my stool, and if it's a very small stool, so if I fall off, don't be alarmed. I'm Kathren. I am executive director for an organization called Elijah Family Homes. Elijah Family Homes is a grassroots housing organization that subsidizes rent for families in recovery. When they come to us, they have at least 1 year clean. They have kids. We keep them in housing for 3 years, and while they're there, they're working on getting better jobs, getting better education, getting their kids settled in school, and so by the time they leave, they should be more self-sufficient than they were when they came. So that's Elijah Family Homes. I've been there since 2009. I've been executive director for 3 years. And I've learned a lot there, and in preparation for this, I've learned a lot about homelessness in our area. So through the next 25 minutes, I'd like you to think about who deserves housing. Because we have a 2 to 3% vacancy rate in the Tri-Cities. So somebody is determining who deserves housing. So let's maybe continue discussion at your table. I'll give you 1 minute, and then you're going to come right back when I say, because I'm in control here. I'm going to give you a few situations. So a childless young couple who's just starting out, both have jobs, can afford housing just fine. Okay, you're going to choose one to give housing to at your table, one. One single parent family with 2 kids who are well established in their school. The parent is looking for a job but hasn't had one for a while, and they just got evicted because they couldn't pay rent. Okay. How about a single parent family with 2 kids, has a job and some money to pay rent, just became clean and sober 6 months ago, is primed to grow, learn, and work hard. It's doing great right now. 2 kids will be returned to the parent provided the mother finds housing. How about a single 18-year-old waiting for disability benefits to come through? They can't work but doesn't have the disability benefit yet. Diagnosed with a serious mental illness and no job. Or how about a retired senior citizen on a fixed income with a terminal illness? Very good. How was that for you? How many people were uncomfortable? Okay. At Elijah Family Homes, we have about 4 hours to make these decisions. We interview tenants, parents, they come, they sit, and we get to decide who deserves housing. Okay? In the Tri-Cities, with a 2 to 3% vacancy rate, really the landlords are deciding who deserves housing. So we need more housing. It's like I was telling somebody, I think it was Dan over there, that it's like stuffing too much Play-Doh into a can, like the can's too small. And we take homeless people and we give them homes and we squish them in there and more fall out, and it's just, it's hard. It's a hard problem. So 272 people, this is a point in time count. Oh, who's homeless? Yeah, 272 people are homeless. This was a point in time count, which they pick a time in January, and all the homeless organizations will count who's homeless on that one day. So if they didn't sleep somewhere the night before, if they didn't have a home, they're homeless. So 272 people were homeless in the 2015 one. 2015. 196 of those were sheltered, 76 were unsheltered, and 40 were chronically homeless, which means they had 4 bouts of homelessness within the year. And the most common causes are job loss, mental illness, and drug use. Okay? So we decided that healthy, clean and sober people with money are the most deserving of housing. That's what we've decided. Okay? And we are, Elijah Family Homes is clean and sober that can afford $100 a month. So that's what our organization decided to do. So housing is a basic need, just like food is. But how are we going to look for a job, apply to school, etc.? Do what Aaron was talking about with taking care and loving your children. How are you going to do that when you don't have a place to sleep that night? What's the first thing you do when you plan a vacation? You find a place to sleep. So when you don't have a place to sleep, that's what you're doing. You're not doing any of the other things. So how are you going to grow and do what you need to do to be able to afford a place to sleep? Okay. So in Washington State and locally here, we work in 2 areas to help folks find housing. One is emergency housing. We work in emergency housing, which means where do we sleep tonight? Washington State has decided to focus on this need. Right now there's a 100-day challenge that the Community Action, what do they call it? Community Action Connection, CAC. It's a big housing organization locally, and they've decided to take this on. And that means they're taking people who are on the street right now in their cars. I think couch surfing is part of it too. They're taking them and getting them in housing right now in 100 days. So all of our housing organizations, or many of them, are working on this. So emergency housing is very important. Okay? But also we work in stable housing. Stable housing is needed for a community to thrive. It's hard to get a job with no address. It's hard to keep kiddos stable in school with no address. Okay? So in the first phase of the Benton Franklin 10-year plan to end homelessness, who knew we had a 10-year plan to end homelessness? Started in 2008, 2009. What they found, even though we're working on emergency housing right now, back in 2012, it was in the middle of that 10-year plan, they found that people were going into these housing programs, these temporary housing programs, and they ended their program and they went right back into homelessness. Okay? So now we're trying to pick up these homeless people and put them back in the programs, and you get the Play-Doh thing again. So I found that interesting just reading that. So who are homeless here? So locally in the Tri-Cities, they found that domestic violence victims are homeless. There's some domestic violence shelter space, but not nearly enough. So people who are in danger are either homeless or staying in their unsafe situations, which is no better. People in generational poverty. So there's, if you're in generational poverty, there's no culture of stability. So you've not been taught how to live, how to keep a budget, how to make money, how to cook. You're used to living in, kind of a slum area, and that just gets passed down from generation to generation, and they're always living in crisis if you're like that, which is very stressful. Okay, what happened to his head? Is that like that on yours too? And this is supposed to be mentally or physically ill. I guess he doesn't have a head. He's probably mentally ill. They have decreased services. It's hard to get well while they're on the streets or in shelters. They don't get medical care especially if you've got a chronic illness like diabetes. Those people aren't getting medical care, they just go to the ER. And then also people are discharged into homelessness from hospitals, prisons, foster care, substance abuse issues, and seniors. So there's a senior. Those are the people that are homeless in the Tri-Cities, and really most of them are mentally ill, and those struggling with substance abuse, which I would argue most of those are mentally ill too, and they're self-medicating. So that's who we need to pay attention for. So where are they? Well, if they're not in a shelter or program, they're living in other people's houses, living maybe parents, maybe with friends. So they're doubling up. They do sleep out on the street and in the park. The programs here we don't have outreach for that. So it's really hard to find where they are and get them services. They have to come to the places, to the agencies that will give them services. Some of them are just about to be evicted. They don't have enough money to pay rent or anything else threatening housing. We do have programs and shelters, but they're mostly for specific populations. Mostly for mentally ill or like Elijah Family Homes, substance abuse, domestic violence services. So it's really slim pickings. If the agency that fits your criteria doesn't have any openings, then you're out of luck. Okay, and some populations don't have any. We had a single father with a 5-year-old boy come through. He had been clean and sober, I think, about 1 or 2 years, I think. The cutest little boy, curly hair. And the mom wasn't in the picture. She was still off using somewhere. But he was in a car on the street, couch surfing. He was going everywhere. He was a great person to help. Elijah Family Homes wanted to help him, but we didn't have anything open right away. He's getting housing now. He's probably going to move in at the end of the week. But because he's a man with a child, no place for him, and who had a criminal background. There's no place for somebody like that here at all. Okay, there's women with children, there's single men, but nothing like that. Okay, so we do have some things. We have emergency housing. We have the Union Gospel Mission, domestic violence services, My Friend's Place, which is for teens. We have My Mommy and Me. I think they exist, who does parenting, teens who are parents and their kids. We have places for substance abuse, recovery. I don't think we have places for people actually using. Okay, I guess they don't deserve any housing if they're struggling with addiction. But we have Elijah Family Homes. There are Oxford houses, which is a single home they run their own house. There's about 5 or 6 women or men, and some of them take children, and they give each other drug tests and make sure they stay clean and sober. But they're all in a single family home, so that's a little difficult. Cullum House deals with mental illness. There's Columbia Basin Veterans Coalition, deals with veterans. And then there's Lourdes Counseling Center, CAC, who I mentioned, Catholic Child and Family, and then there's some other county programs for jail release. There's churches. So we do have people and organizations working for housing, but the problem is the 2 to 3% vacancy rate, like I said before. Okay, that allows landlords to be very picky about who to rent to. If you're not perfect, you're not getting housing. Okay, landlords aren't flexible. So if you have any kind of crime on your record, you're not getting housing. Bad credit, you're not getting housing. The second tier people, it's also that if you've got, I'll use Elijah Family Homes as an example. We have pretty nice duplexes and pretty nice places to stay. When our people graduate from our program, they are able to afford housing, but they move down into a less well-kept place in a neighborhood that is kind of shady and may have some drugs around that, which is not good for people in recovery. So what's happening is because there's not enough vacancy, the people who are more desirable get housing, and the less desirable people end up on the street. Not even because they can't afford it, but I'm thinking what we might want to do is get some help with building houses and getting people, to build more places so everybody can move up in and create some more competition. That's just an idea I had. Let's go talk about budget, because it's not only a lack of availability, it's about budget. I plugged in, I don't know if you can see that. I plugged in, if I were a single parent, which I'm not, and I was going to live a modest life, modest life, but survive. I went to this, it's a thecalculator.org self-sufficiency calculator. And you can put in the county you live in, and you can put in the number of people in your household. So I put in myself and my 2 daughters, age 11 and 12. And I learned that to make ends meet, I would have to make $24.49 per hour at 40 hours a week. Okay? And that's $51,730.63 a year. Okay? So they have housing, $888.51. Childcare is almost $1,500. Food is $476. Transportation is $259. They have health care in here, which is $415. They give me a miscellaneous at $353, so that was nice of them to do. And then taxes are $690. So I've got a $4,577.55 in expenses, and then when you take my taxes out, $4,310.88 a month. Okay, so actually the expenses are more than my wages until taxes, so I have to be really good about saving those taxes and making sure I get the right number of deductions and everything for that to work. But that's how much I would have to make. I'm an executive director of a small nonprofit, and I'm not making that, so maybe we need to fund those nonprofits in case something happens. I did this again here. So this is my family. It's another section of the calculator where you can just plug in minimum wage. So I did my same single parent family. Now I'm making $9.47 an hour, working 40 hours a week, and that gives me $1,667 a month. Okay? So housing cost didn't change, it's $889. So that means over half of my income is going to housing. And that's a modest, I'm familiar with rents, and that's a modest apartment going rate. Imagine, whatever you're making right now, imagine spending half of that income on housing. Okay, child care didn't go down, $14.96, transportation $476. I left out health care. I figure I might be on Medicaid, so I didn't put anything for health care. Miscellaneous, $325. And then I get an earned income tax credit because I'm poor of $429. So if I budget that well, I can at least get $2,882 in expenses on my $1,667. And maybe I can cut some of that miscellaneous, but what happens if I need to repair my car? What happens if I, have some loans or debt or court fines or anything like that? that was just really eye-opening. I just did this last week. I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't know it would be half. I mean, that's pretty sad. So that's why people are on TANF, welfare, food stamps, seriously can't afford it. Okay, so that was, that shocked me. Okay, and then you go back to the WHO, and then you've got mental illness, physical illness, elderly, using drugs, and then you wonder how they're going to do that. Okay. So how does homelessness affect there's the, in case you couldn't see that, I didn't know if you would be able to see that. So that's the 3,638 is the expenses, and then after taxes, 2,882. So how does homelessness affect the community at large? Well, if we don't take care of our people, we're not taking care of the community. Okay? There's a tendency, I know for me, there's just us and those people over there. We're all a part of the community. So how does it affect the community? It is the community. Also, we like people to have jobs in our community. We like people to contribute, and it's hard to keep a job with no address. We like educated people. I hope we like educated people. It's hard to get educated with no address when kids move around from school to school. And don't get the care that they need. We don't get educated people. Children learn what they live, like we talked about. So if we're keeping our community homeless, then their children are going to be homeless, and that grows. Their 2 or 3 children will be homeless, and they're always, we're always in crisis. Okay. So they asked me to tell you what can we do about it. Well, if you're a landlord, are there any landlords in here? Good, okay. One thing you can do is adjust your criteria a little bit. You don't need to let people with a heavy criminal background in. But what would be nice is to interview the person, because a lot of times people with a background, when you sit down and talk to them, you can see that they've cleaned up. They're doing great. I will tell you, people in recovery are the most fantastic people you'll ever meet. I like to say, if I relapse, I eat a cupcake because I'm addicted to sugar, and I don't lose my home for that. Okay, I don't lose my family for that, and I don't have that much accountability. People in recovery work on themselves, and they tend to be very responsible. And if they fall off, they fall off. But we have a lot of people I know at Elijah Family Homes that are doing very, very well. So if you would at least interview them and adjust your criteria a little bit, that would be helpful. Okay. And sometimes, I said sometimes coming from that background can be an asset. Know the landlord-tenant laws. There's a lot of, especially the accommodations you can make, and when can you evict somebody, what can you do? I mean, that would help. Of course, donate and volunteer for the local housing organizations that I mentioned. 211, I think it's 211.org has all of those organizations there. If you donate and volunteer for them, that could help. And then also, I don't know how much time I've got left. If we don't take care of our people, we don't take care of the community, and we don't always need an organization. Thank you.